Merry Christmas, folks, and welcome to the holiday week edition of #AskGSM for Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well, enjoying your week so far. And we got a lot to get into, questions-wise, here today, so we'll get right into it in a moment. One quick note, my Drew McIntyre interview went up this morning here on the channel in article form on Bleacher Report and in audio form here on the channel. So if you haven't already checked it out, we've done a ton of conversations this year. That was the fourth interview I've done with Drew in 2021. He's always great. It's a quicker chat than usual. It's about 9 minutes, but it's well worth checking out. We talk about his favorite Christmas movies, Christmas plans, among other, wrestling-related topics, of course. So check that out when you get a chance, and also in article form over on Bleacher Report. And per usual, guys, if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a question on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. Include your question in next week's edition. My power actually just went out right before I hit record, so I got to pull the questions from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter off of my phone, which I still have service for, because my service is not great without the Wi-Fi on. I still haven't managed queued up on my phone, so I apologize. It's been a busy week, and it's been a busy month, obviously, with the holidays coming up on Friday, Saturday, whatever. So bear with me. I apologize. But we'll start with Noel from YouTube. They have a Facebook question as well, but we'll start with the YouTube one. Happy early Christmas, everyone, they say. How do you think, usually when I take the questions from all these various platforms, I reword them because the wording isn't always great. So I haven't had a chance to reread this stuff over, proofread it before we got it going here on the show. But essentially the question says, has Roman Reigns had the best 2021 in WWE by far? Definitely. It's not even close. I think Damian Priest had a great year. Bianca Belair overall had a very good year, among a few other people as well, but I think it's kind of hard to go against Roman Reigns, who, not only because he was champion for the entire year, the entire calendar year of 2021, but he had great promos, great matches, made SmackDown must-see at certain points, and was the only real thing must-see about SmackDown for a very long time this year. Roman Reigns was the guy in 2021 for WWE, so not even a question. The second part of their question says, "Will Thunder Rosa be the one to finally beat Britt Baker for the AEW Women's World Championship?" Yes, I think she should be, and I think she will be. I know Britt's going to be defending against Riho at the Battle of the Belt show. They're telling the story that Britt has never beaten Riho before, so I think that sets up for a Britt Baker win on that show, setting her up probably for Revolution. That's where I would do it. I know Thunder Rosa still has her semifinals match in the TBS Women's Championship coming up. Not this week. I think next week, maybe. Her and Jade Cargill. I think Cargill should win before ultimately losing to Ruby Soho. I think Ruby Soho should win the whole thing, but I do think Cargill should be the runner-up. I don't think it's her time yet to become champion. Either way, I love Thunder Rosa. I want her to be the one to beat Britt and not be the one to become the TBS Women's Champion. So that's my current prediction. Going over to the Facebook questions, we'll start with Noel, since we're already talking about them. Like I said, happy early Christmas, they say. I appreciate that. Their first question was, who would you say had the best 2021 on the men's side and the women's side for wrestling this year? That's a good question. Let's see. For the men's, again, Roman Reigns would be my pick for WWE. The only other person that comes close is Kenny. And if you say Kenny, I wouldn't argue with that. I still say, like in the PW 500 or whatever, I said, it's a joke that Kenny would be over Roman, but it's not really a joke. I kind of exaggerated. I can understand Kenny being ranked number one for a lot of people, because not only was he the Impact World Champion, or the fucking AEW World Champion, what am I saying? Drinking too much eggnog, which I don't drink anyway, so that's not an excuse. But not only was the AEW World Champion for a majority of the year, from the beginning all the way through November, he was also the Impact World Champion for several months, from April through August, having a lot of good matches over there with Sami Callihan at Slammiversary. He faced Moose at Against All Odds in a very good match, before dropping the championship to Christian in a very good match on the first ever Rampage. He had a great reign as AEW World Champion. The reason why I put Roman over Kenny is because Roman had just as many good matches, in my opinion, as Kenny Omega did. He wrestled a bit more often, I feel like, than Kenny Omega did. But I feel like Roman just had better feuds. Aside from the Hangman feud with Kenny, I feel like Roman had better feuds than Adam Page. Not than Adam Page. I mean, I guess Adam Page too, but he had better feuds than Kenny for the most part, had just as many good matches, and he did have better promos, I thought. Callis was a good mouthpiece for Kenny. I like that pairing, I do. I just feel like Roman was just that much more of the guy in wrestling this year than Kenny Omega was. It wasn't a great year from what I understand for anyone overall over in New Japan. It just wasn't a great year for the promotion in general. Some people in Impact did well. Ring of Honor, MLW. I would still say Roman Reigns is far and away the guy in not only just WWE, but the wrestler of the year in 2021. For the women's side of wrestling, Britt Baker had a great year. She finally became champion. She's only lost 1 or 2 matches this year. Actually, I think 3. She lost to Thunder Rosa in the unsanctioned match on St. Patrick's Day. She lost to Nyla Rose, I believe. Maybe she lost to someone. I think it was Nyla Rose in that number 1 contenders tournament to determine a number 1 contender for the championship going into Revolution earlier this year. And then she lost to Riho about a couple of weeks ago on Black Friday. So, yeah. Britt Baker would be up there. Becky Lynch wasn't around long enough for this really to be her year, but I like what she's been doing lately. Although people don't want to boo her, but she's had a great last couple of months. Definitely not Charlotte. Not a great year for Charlotte. Charlotte had a handful of great matches, but her character work and the feuds that she was a part of were just fucking terrible. The Rhea Ripley feud just never really got going. The Nikki Ash feud wasn't that much better, and the Toni Storm feud so far has been abysmal. So definitely not Charlotte. Sasha wasn't around for, again, a majority of the year, so I can't say her. I would go with Bianca. Honestly, I know I'm going with 2 WWE people here. I think I would give Bianca the slight edge over Britt, just because I feel like the women's division, not that much more, mind you, but was more of a focal point in WWE than it has in AEW. I mean, Britt has defended the championship in the main event of Dynamite, Rampage this year more than a few times, but not enough for it to really be like a central focal point on that show. It's not. The women's division has improved, and I'm not as sour on the idea of a secondary women's championship in that company as it was 2 or 3 months ago. They've actually kind of warmed me up to that idea by doing the tournament and introducing more people and stuff like that. But still, I feel like WWE has had the women main event more Raws, more SmackDowns, more prominent storylines. I would still put I would say the Rosa and Baker feud was great. Beyond that, though, I can't really name one memorable women's feud AEW has done this year. In WWE, regardless of how you feel about the company, I really enjoyed Banks and Belair whenever they went at it. Earlier on in the year, it was kind of like a friendly babyface versus babyface feud, which I wasn't a big fan of, but ended up getting better going into SummerSlam. I enjoyed the Becky and Sasha feud. Or I already said that. The Becky and Belair. I already mentioned Sasha and Bianca. I'm all over the place. I apologize. I liked the Belair and Lynch feud. There was a lot of feuds I liked this year from the women in WWE. Not all of them were great, but I can name more than I could in AEW. The bottom line being that I think Bianca had a great year. She won the Rumble, main evented WrestleMania, won the championship, was champion for a decent amount of time, had some quality matches, and she's been in chase mode since the summer, and she's had some great matches since then as well. So I would have to go with Bianca Belair. The 2 Bs, Britt Baker, Bianca Belair, blah, blah, blah. I would go with Bianca Belair over Britt Baker as the overall women's wrestler of the year, personally. Although I would say she's a close second. No second question from Facebook. If you can be friends with only one Marvel superhero for the rest of your life, who would it be? Probably no one, because I feel like the friends of any of these superheroes are immediately putting their lives in danger. But putting that aside, probably Hawkeye. I mean, I like all the Avengers, but Hawkeye's always been my underrated favorite, because not a lot of people would say Hawkeye's their favorite, and I'm enjoying the show right now. I would probably go Clint Barton Hawkeye. That would be my friend from the Avengers, I would say, one Marvel superhero. Andre G from Facebook as well, his first question from Facebook. Do you think NXT 2.0 is doing too many debuts and needs to focus on the current ones instead of debuting 5 wrestlers in 1 month? I've said that since the beginning of NXT 2.0. It's not the only issue with the show, but it's one of the biggest. They're attempting to introduce way too many people at once. The more, I say more established, but it's only been 3 months, but the original crop of people like Grayson Waller, Carmelo Hayes, Braun Breaker, Tony D'Angelo, they're doing well. I'm enjoying their stuff a lot. People like, Idris and Ophir, I think he has potential, but he's just, they're attempting to introduce way too many people at once. Draco Anthony, I know they were trying to introduce, and he's great, but again, he's going to get lost in the shuffle. We haven't heard anything about him in weeks, so I'm not exactly sure what his status is at the moment. And there were a few others as well. I mean, Boa does absolutely nothing for me. The tag team division is a mess. I like Imperium a lot in MSK, but like the rest of the teams just have no sense of direction at all. So, yeah, I've been saying that for months. They got to stop introducing so many people at once. It's ridiculous. And it doesn't help everyone. It doesn't help anyone. It causes less people to get over in the long term. So, yeah, they definitely got to work on that. Among other things with NXT 2.0. Andre's second question, what do you think will be the biggest match or moment for 2022? I know it's difficult to pick. Listen, I say this every single year. Anyone who has listened to the show for years on end now probably is well aware of this. I don't really do predictions, or it's not even like I don't want to get anything wrong. I'm not creative enough to do predictions and, like, oh, this is going to happen next year. I want this to happen, blah, blah, blah. I'm more of a wait-and-see approach type of guy. I do tend to make some predictions on WrestleRant Radio from time to time, and I'm sure I'll get that question next week. What do you want to see happen in 2022? I can mention that as far as things that I think could happen or will happen. I just can't do that type of stuff. Honestly, I'm more about in the moment than I am 6 months down the road as far as wrestling goes and stuff like that, and I guess just in general. But anyway, as far as the biggest match or moment, I don't know. I feel like we got a lot of great moments this year. I mean, what more is there, to get in 2022? A Danhausen debut in AEW, I look forward to that. A Briscoes FTR match I'm looking forward to. Would that be the biggest of the year? Probably not. A Roman-Drew match at Mania seems likely. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't think we're getting Rock and Roman next year. That would probably be my answer, but if we're not getting that next year, then it can't be. Thunder Rosa finally becoming champion. Again, I would say Adam Page becoming champion, but we just got that. MJF becoming champion, maybe. I feel like that's going to happen next year. I can't really pinpoint one match or moment from either WWE or AEW or really any promotion in general as far as the biggest match or moment I expect to happen next year. But there are a few things that I do envision, I do expect to happen in 2022. Will it be the biggest match or moment? Probably not, but they could be pretty notable. So we'll see what happens come the new year. I'm excited to see what's in store for 2022 in wrestling. We transition over to the Twitter questions here at Reborn Again. John Ritland from the Twitter Machine and YouTube. Check out his YouTube show, Real Honesty, with John Ritland. Does a lot of great movie reviews right now. I know he just reviewed Rumble. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, his review or the movie itself. I kind of tend to stay away from the spoiler-free reviews even. I like to go into this stuff with a fresh slate. Usually I'll watch the movie and then check out John's reviews, but I'm going to check out Rumble probably on New Year's Eve. I got a younger sister who might like that movie, so I might watch it with her on New Year's Eve. We'll see. But anyway, John's question was, as the year winds down, should WWE consider getting rid of some championships sometime early next year? They've got about 30 of them when they need maybe half of that. They're not getting rid of half of the championships, obviously, and I'm not saying that you suggested that, and they won't. But there's a few I would get rid of. It looks like they're getting rid of the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. They're advertising Carmelo Hayes and Roderick in a unification match in New Year's Evil. Fantastic. Have Carmelo win. Have that be it, please, for the North American Championship. We don't need that title anymore. Or not the North American title, the Cruiserweight Championship. That Cruiserweight division is dead and has been for a very long time. Get rid of it. The women's tag team titles, I'm not against a secondary women's title, as long as it's booked correctly. AEW, I wasn't really high on the idea, but if they can book it correctly and make it meaningful, then I'm for it. WWE, I just have a lot less faith in. They've shown that in recent years because these women's tag team titles have been completely fucking pointless on both brands, the main roster and NXT. I know they introduced the women's tag team titles this year to NXT. Completely pointless. Please get rid of it. A secondary title might not be the worst thing, but tag teams, I just feel it's so forced. They don't have a lot of women's tag teams to begin with. They just don't do a great job of that sort of thing on any of the WWE brands. It's clearly not a priority to them. So I would get rid of the women's tag team titles. The 24/7 championship, you guys know my feelings on that. Just completely pointless and stupid. It ran out its welcome years ago. So I would get rid of that as well. I'm not even really sure what other championships you can get rid of. I know like the Intercontinental Championship is a complete afterthought, but I think having one mid-card belt on both shows, a world championship, a women's title, and tag team titles makes sense. If I would unify any of the titles, it would be the tag team titles, because the tag team divisions are such a mess on both shows. I would probably just get rid of one of the sets of tag team titles and have them be traveling champions. People have been suggesting that for a while now, so I concur with that. I feel like that would be a good idea. What's that, 4 titles I would get rid of? The women's tag team titles, on both brands, 24/7 Cruiserweight and the tag, one of the sets of tag team titles for them, and that's about 5. That's not too bad. I don't see them getting rid of any other championships, and I don't think they need to. But yeah, I would say those 5 could probably go. That would be my, that's how I would do it. John's next question. So, Bryan Danielson versus Adam Page was quite good, for lack of a better way of putting it. Where would you rank it as far as hour-long matches go? At least ones from the last 20 to 25 years. It's a great question. Obviously, you would have to include all the Iron Man matches, right? The 60-minute Iron Man matches. Not to sound like a modern mark, but I did enjoy Orton and Cena from Bragging Rights 09. I would probably put Danielson and Page above that. I'd have to go back and watch it, probably. But, I mean, that was intended to be 60 minutes, obviously. That, the Brett and Shawn Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12, which I don't think is among the greatest of all time. I do think it's a very good match. I don't think it's the greatest WrestleMania match ever, but it is a very good match. You would have to include that for obvious reasons. Triple H and Rock, I feel like, did have the greatest Iron Man match ever, 60 minutes, back at Judgment Day 2000. So I think that would be better than Page and Bryan Danielson, personally. I'm trying to think. I know Cena and Shawn, was that exactly an hour, though? It was a very long match. I don't know if it was a full 60 minutes. It was close, though. It was close. That was a fantastic match back from Raw in April of 2007. There was a great gauntlet on Raw about 3 years ago where Rollins lasted over an hour, actually. It was right before Elimination Chamber. It was a long as fuck match. It lasted forever. So we'll see. I don't know. I feel like that was a good match. I don't know if I would put that above Danielson and Page, though. So I don't really know where I would rank it, to be honest with you. There's a lot of good hour-long matches. It would probably be somewhere in the middle. It wasn't the greatest I've ever seen. I enjoyed the match a lot. I don't think it was the match of the year for AEW, personally, in 2021, because I kind of figured that draw was coming. I think I enjoyed Omega and Danielson more from Dynamite 3 months ago. But it would probably be somewhere in the middle. I don't remember every Iron Man or every 60-minute match from the last 20, 25 years. Omega and Okada would have to be on that list as well. That was a fantastic 60-minute draw a few years ago. I would also put that over Danielson and Page, because I don't know if I was expecting that to go 60 minutes. But still, that was very good as well. At Kyle Rochelle 19 from Twitter, why do you think they're doing Charlotte and Toni Storm's championship match on Friday? Why not wait until day 1? We all know it's going to happen on the pay-per-view, so why not wait? Is it going to happen on the pay-per-view, though? I feel like they're doing some matches like AJ and Omos on Raw and not at the pay-per-view. So not necessarily. I mean, unless it's an angle with AJ and Omos and they set up a rematch for the pay-per-view, which is likely but not guaranteed. I mean, we're getting fucking Drew McIntyre and Madcap Moss. I mean, I would think Tony and Charlotte is more of a priority than that. And I like Drew a lot. We just had the interview go live earlier today here on the channel, but Madcap Moss, give me a fucking break. That's not a pay-per-view match. I think they will set up a match for the women from SmackDown for the pay-per-view. I would be shocked if they didn't. Why not wait? Well, they wanted an attraction for the Christmas show. And they can tell the story that Big E won the Intercontinental Championship on the Christmas SmackDown last year. That was a great moment. So, they might want to say, lightning can strike twice, another Christmas miracle. I don't think it will. They already taped the show. I haven't heard anything about a title change. I don't want it spoiled, but I assume that Tony didn't win the championship. It's just to boost the rating, because they know not a lot of people are going to be watching SmackDown on Friday, on Christmas Eve. I know I rarely watch wrestling. Christmas Day sometimes, Christmas Eve almost never, because I'm almost usually out with family. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of other people. I feel like more people are out on Christmas Eve than on Christmas Day. I could be wrong on that, but that's just my own personal experience. So I feel like they want to entice more people to watch that night by doing a championship match with Tony and Charlotte. So, they'll probably do a rematch on the subsequent Saturday, 8 days later at the pay-per-view. But I think that's why they did it. Ratings is my best answer for you, is why they're doing it. I don't agree with it, but they want to add an attraction match to that show aside from just the 12-man gauntlet. The next question comes from, let me just check the username on this one, Just Totally Cherry with TTLY in their Twitter handle. Thank you, Cherry, for sending in the question. She says, in your opinion, who will hold the main WWE titles this time next year? That's a good question. Not just in 2022, but like this time next year. I would be very surprised if Roman was still champion by this point next year. He could lose it and then win it back, I guess. We're talking December. I don't think Drew is going to win. I mean, I think he's going to win the championship next year. I don't know if he would hold it all the way through December. I feel like it's going to be someone that we're not thinking of. By this point next year, we're going to have another draft. So more people from Raw could be on SmackDown. I really don't know. That's a good question because December is always a weird month. That would have to be the champions going into WrestleMania 39. And we're not even through WrestleMania 38 yet, not even close. I guess I'll just go with the safe choice of Roman, and on Raw, definitely not Big E. Maybe Rollins, maybe. I don't know, man. I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. So I'm not really sure. Thank you, Cherry. Though I said I don't know, man. I know you're not a man. That's just my lingo speaking there. But yeah, I don't know. I'll go with Roman and Rollins. I know. I hope that's not the case. We want some fresh faces on top, but I'm going to throw out a random guess, and I'm sure I'll look back on this in a year from now and say to myself, what a fucking moron. It was like Cesaro and Braun Breaker. Hey, you know what? Braun Breaker's not a bad choice if they call him up by then, you know? So it's very possible, but I guess we'll find out come December of 2020. Back to John Ritland, his next question was, with Ring of Honor shutting down for now, do you see any other companies closing their doors next year? If so, which ones and why? I mean, I don't want to think negatively, but I don't think so. Ring of Honor was a weird case. I'm honestly surprised the NWA started back up again after a year. It closed down due to COVID. I didn't think it was going to restart. They were in much worse shape than Ring of Honor. Like, they weren't running any shows at all for a year. Ring of Honor only stopped for like 6 months. They lost a lot more talent than Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor retained all of their talent. NWA lost a lot. I could see NWA maybe closing down. I don't think they will. If there was any promotion I could see closing its doors, it's probably that one. Maybe an indie company too, but I don't really count that stuff. I'm talking like major promotions. I think Impact, WWE, AEW, obviously, are all going to be fine. If anything, NWA, I hope not. But at the rate they're going, with the lack of buzz they have for a majority of their shows and the attendance they're doing for a lot of these events, it's a possibility. I don't want to think negatively, but if I had to put my money on any promotion, if they were to close down, which I don't think they are, but I would go with that one. At Kyle Rochelle 19's next question, I know they're all over the place. It's because I didn't put together the doc before my power went out, and I apologize. But his question was, now that AJ is by himself, can he be a great person to face Edge at WrestleMania? God, I hope so. If not Edge and Owens, which would also be a great option, Edge and AJ or AJ and Balor at Mania would be money. Balor's got to mean more, as does AJ before now and then for that match to actually matter. But I do think Edge and AJ is a WrestleMania-worthy match. I think the top two matches they wanted to see when Edge came back from retirement were Edge and Rollins and Edge and AJ. We got Edge and Rollins at SummerSlam and that whole back half of 2020, 2021. Now it's time for Edge and AJ. So, yeah, I hope that's the WrestleMania match they do. At Iwagoon91, their first question, it's Wednesday, you know what that means. Would you have liked if Jon Moxley and the late, great Brody Lee had teamed up? I think that would have been fun. I know they were very close. They had a lot of matches in WWE, even in AEW at one point, at Double or Nothing for the World Championship, which was great. I know they're very close and whatnot, so that would have been a good pairing. I don't know how it would have made sense, but, because Brody was like the leader of the Dark Order, he was a heel. Maybe they could have done what they did with Kingston, and instead of Kingston, it was, Brody forming a team with Moxley. But given the character that Brody was going for in AEW, unless he changed up that character, I don't know if that would have worked as well. But, yeah, I wouldn't have minded that. His next question, your thoughts on the Long Island crowd giving MJF a hero's welcome and him not being a jerk towards them. I thought it was cool. I think it's funny, and I think it would be cool if they established if MJF was a babyface in Long Island only, and he ended up acting like a heel at the end of that segment, like he was going to save Dante Martin, but then he didn't, and then he beat him up anyway, so it wasn't like he turned face and he was face for the entire evening. But he wasn't a dick towards the crowd specifically, so I think it would be funny if MJF was a heel everywhere but there. And if and when the day comes that they turn him heel or face full-time, at least for a little while, that should be where the babyface turn starts, because they love him so much there. I think it would be great if they gave us a reason to want to cheer him. That crowd, the only reason why they cheer him is because he's from there. Beyond that, we were given no reason as audience members watching at home to cheer MJF on that given night. But if they did want to turn him face, which I feel, again, is inevitable, because everyone goes face or heel at some point, for the most part, that would be a good place to start it. So maybe at some point much further down the road. His next question here, your thoughts on Braun Breaker, and do you consider him to be the best thing to come out of NXT 2.0? Love the guy, and I do. I do think he's the best thing to come out of NXT 2.0 so far. There's a lot of people I think that are very good and have potential. Tony D'Angelo has actually grown on me, and the dumb gimmick, I think, has gotten better. Grayson Waller has potential. He's impressed me. Carmelo Hayes is a star. He's probably a very close second. I like the Creed brothers. I like Diamond Mine overall. Persia Parada with Indy, I like that pairing. There's a lot of people in NXT 2.0 I'm a fan of, but of them all, who I think has the most potential, Cora Jade as well. I think she's also great. She has a lot of potential. I would still go, in Toxic Attraction too, I would still go with Braun Breaker. I feel like he has a higher ceiling than anyone else. I feel like it would really take a lot for them to fuck him up, and WWE is very much capable of that, I'm aware, but I still feel like he's a guy that's going to be one of their featured young pillar players for years to come in WWE. At E13A, first question was, what direction would you have preferred NXT to have taken instead of glorified developmental show? That's what I called in my review. That's what he's referencing in that question. I wouldn't have gone in any different direction. I already enjoyed what NXT was doing previously. And just to kind of add to the buzz, make the show better, make the show more must-see. And I'm talking the NXT from 6 months ago to a year ago. I think the brand that they established and the takeovers had something special. And you can argue, the ratings are the same as they were 6 months ago. Like the show's still terrible, blah, blah, blah. Like even those stars weren't drawing ratings, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it definitely hasn't helped. The NXT 2.0 branding certainly hasn't helped. And again, you can make the argument you got to lose some viewers to gain some viewers. Like these guys aren't the future now, but they will be in 6 months. Again, like I said, they have a lot of top prospects in NXT. I just feel like the vibe of the show is so similar to Raw and SmackDown. That's the problem with it. The old NXT, if you want to call it that, NXT 1.0, I don't know what that would make the NXT of 10 years ago when it was still a competition show. Maybe NXT 0.0, I don't know. But the previous iteration of NXT at least had several things going for it, and that they had ready-made stars for the main roster. And it's not NXT's fault those people didn't work out. That was the fucking main roster / Vince McMahon's fault. A lot of those people were not as successful as they should have been because they weren't booked properly. The Vaudevillains were never going to go on to become one of the greatest tag teams of all time. But there's no reason why Aleister Black, Keith Lee, Karrion Kross could not have been world champions on that main roster at some point. They were all stars, and they fucked every single one of those guys up. Andrade should have been a slam dunk. Like, it doesn't take a lot for these people to be booked properly, and they still fuck it up. It's amazing to me. It really is. But the thing is, NXT 2.0 is not an awful show. It definitely isn't great, but it isn't the worst show in wrestling currently, I don't think. It's not. That being said, what I said on Twitter and in my review, and I will repeat this again, the biggest problem with this show is that it's on TV. NXT of 6 or 7 and 8 years ago, back in 2013, 2014, before the network arrived, it was on Hulu. That felt like, to me, a developmental show. They were developing talent. They weren't having these blockbuster matches every week. Go back and watch those shows. They weren't amazing. But at least they were building talent. It was an hour long. The current iteration of NXT, the 2-hour format in USA, sends the message that, SmackDown's also on a major network for 2 hours. NXT should feel prime time. It's fucking not. It's not prime time. It's developmental. FCW and OVW were not having these prime time slots on USA Network every week. NXT didn't for many, many years. They were on the network and whatever for several years before they finally showed up on USA. And by that point, they had enough star power where it was like, okay, the show makes sense to be a 2-hour show on USA. It has star power. It's exciting enough. It's a must-see show most weeks, at least early on. But when you make it developmental, and it was always a breeding ground for stars of the future, but it felt like an important enough show to justify it being 2 hours on USA. The current format of NXT does not belong on television. SmackDown and Raw are not amazing shows either. But it's not even on par with those shows as far as the heavy hitters and the storylines and how important it is. It's just not. It's not. So, and you also, when you send the message that people on NXT could be fired at any time, and that these people aren't the future, and that the whole thing about NXT used to be that, these people went on from NXT to be successful on the main roster, like the Shield and the Wyatt family. You never know who might come out of NXT next. So you got to watch it and see who the stars of tomorrow are. The stars of tomorrow may not even be the stars of today before they get released. That's the problem. We're given zero reason to care about NXT. Take it off of fucking primetime television. It's not good enough to be on Tuesday nights for 2 hours every single week. maybe the occasional special, but NXT honestly should have been on TV years earlier. Like, I feel like it started way too late towards the end of when NXT was trending downward, and they really should have jumped on that bandwagon a lot earlier, and I know they only did that to go head-to-head with AEW. Had AEW not, come along, would they have gone to USA? Honestly, maybe not, because why did it take so long? It's not like they were going to do it in 2017 or 2018. They think they were going to. They were thinking about it, but they never did. They only did it to combat AEW, and AEW was just a cooler show. They were the cool kids in the block, and NXT wasn't anymore. I still enjoyed the shows, and they were far better than they are now, so it's just a glorified developmental show. If you want to do that shit, you got to make the show an hour long or take it off of USA. I mean, this is not what I was expecting when NXT went to USA 2 years ago. It's unrecognizable at this point in time. His next few questions here. Let's see. At E13A's next question, do you think 205 Live and NXT UK will continue past 2022? I mean, 205 Live will not under that name. They will absolutely change it soon. It's not a cruiserweight show. They're going to get rid of the cruiserweight division soon, seemingly. If they do that, then it can't be called 205 Live. 205 Live specifically depends on, like, international streaming rights. It doesn't even air live on on any show, like any network. It was on Peacock. It is on Peacock, but once the show ends, you can't watch it anywhere else. Like Hulu maybe, but that's about it. It's becoming what NXT was like 7 or 8 years ago. That's what it is at this point. So the show still exists. It's basically like the dark for NXT. It's basically NXT dark at this point. I can see them continuing that show under that format. I don't expect that to go away because they need some international television rights. The only reason why Superstars went away many years ago was because 205 Live replaced it. Like, that's why Main Event's still around. Why do you think Main Event is still around? Main Event is the most pointless show in the entire company. But they have it because they paid for the international television fees or whatever it is. They're kind of obligated to have that show at this point. So that's why they do it. As far as NXT UK, I mean, I guess it could close, but, I mean, if it survived the pandemic and they have fans back now, I don't see why it would close at this point. I mean, I can't imagine they're making much money from that brand. It might be more of a money loser than a money gainer, but it hasn't NXT UK hasn't really trended downward. It's just been in the same stagnant spot for 3 years. It just never really grew to the point where they hoped it would. It's not like it was with NXT where it reached these highs of highs and then the lows of lows. And the show has always been pretty consistent for the most part. It's not unbearable at this point. It's still a decent show most weeks. I mean, I guess it could go away, but there's been no indication that'll be the case. I think it'll continue past 2022 for both shows. 205 Live just under a different name. His next question, when was the last time Cody Rhodes interacted with the Elite? Probably on an episode of Being the Elite about a year and a half ago, definitely. The last time I remember... Oh, wait a second. No, yeah, I was going to say he was in the Stadium Stampede match, but he wasn't. He was going to be in the Blood and Guts match before COVID fucked it up and they had to delay it. He was going to be in that match, but then before he could be in Stadium Stampede, which is basically what Blood and Guts was going to be, he ended up transitioning out of it and going into the TNT title tournament instead. So I feel like the last time on TV he interacted with the Elite, and I could be wrong, was when they opened that first pandemic show and he was in the ring with, I think, Kenny and the Bucks and maybe Paige, I don't remember. But they talked to the lack of crowd, the audience watching at home, talking about the situation. And that was it. He may have done stuff with the Elite after that, to continue that Elite Inner Circle feud. I don't really remember. I would have to go back and read my reviews and whatever. But I think that was the last time I remember him interacting with the Elite on TV. I know he was on Being the Elite for a month or two after that, but beyond Double or Nothing, he definitely wasn't a part of the Elite anymore. They never really explained it on screen. That was kind of lazy. They just kind of phased him out, and that was it. His last question here, any early predictions on Royal Rumble 2022 winners? Side note, I will be traveling to St. Louis to be in attendance for that event. Very cool. Congrats. I hope you enjoy, Emmanuel. That should be a lot of fun. The Rumble never disappoints. I mean, some Rumbles are better than others, obviously. There are some disappointing Rumbles, don't get me wrong. But to be there in person is always a lot of fun. As far as the matches themselves, I mean, the men's, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I would have said Keith Lee about 6 months ago before they fired him, so I can't really say him now. Karrion would have been another pick. Beyond those guys, I mean, Big E would have been one before he won the WWE Championship. I mean, Brock's a possibility. He's going for the belt on January 1st. If he loses and then bounces back to win the WWE title or win the Rumble 3 weeks later. That's a possibility. I wouldn't do that per se. I think that's lazy, but that's definitely a possibility. Drew winning again is also a possibility. Again, not something I would do. And that's from SmackDown. From the Raw side of things, Austin Theory is a dark horse. I don't think they would do that, but I wouldn't count him out entirely. Bobby Lashley's an idea. He's never won the Rumble before. I wouldn't mind that. That would be pretty cool. Beyond those guys, there's really no one that stands out as an obvious choice to win next year's Rumbles, at least for the men. So I guess we'll see what they go with, and hopefully it's a surprise pick. But, I say anything can change in the next month, but it's literally coming up in like 30 days. So I guess we'll see what they do, but I'm expecting it to be probably, honestly, Brock or Drew. I don't like those ideas, but that's probably what it's going to end up being if I had to put money on it. As far as the women go, Bianca would make sense because she has the unfinished business with Becky from late last year. But the thing with that, though, is that, I don't know, she already won the Rumble a year ago, so I don't really want her to win it 2 years in a row. I feel like people might resent her for that and boo her, and she might get some backlash from that. A lot like with Drew, if Drew were to win it again, although it makes storyline sense for him to win. Becky or Bianca would make sense. I wouldn't necessarily do that. Naomi's an option. Doudrop, I don't think that's going to happen, but she's really improved a lot lately. Liv would be cool, but yeah, maybe. I could see that being as far as fresh faces go, she would be a good one. My money, if I had to put money on it right now, it would probably be Rhea Ripley. They're branching her away from Nikki Ash. She hasn't really done a lot of note since losing the Raw Women's Championship over the summer. She should be a featured player again very, very soon. So I would definitely have her win the whole thing and go on to face Becky at WrestleMania. If not Bianca. I think Bianca getting her win back would make sense. But what you could also do is have Rhea win and then go to SmackDown and face Charlotte. I don't know what they're doing with Charlotte and Tony and that whole fucking shitty storyline, but that's also a possibility. So I would say Rhea for the women, and then for the men, I don't want to say Brock, but I just not really sure who else it could be. I really don't know. Bobby's a possibility. The idea of Goldberg winning really does scare me because he's never won a Rumble before, and I could see them. I don't mind the idea of Goldberg and Big E at WrestleMania, but I don't think Goldberg winning the Rumble is the way to do it. Is the problem. So I guess we'll see. I would say Brock if I had to put money on it, but that's not exactly what I want to see for the men. And then the last question comes from @Misdemeanor6. Let's see. Their question was, what is your favorite finisher by Wardlow? I would rather have him do his Casualty of War since it's different. The F10 to Lesnar is very Lesnar-like, and multiple power bombs have been done before, although fun to watch. Have a Merry Christmas. So as far as the Wardlow finishers go, I don't know. I didn't really know he had many finishers. Is the Casualty of War the F10? I don't know. I like the F10 a lot. I think the F10 looks fucking great. I think he fucking kills his opponents every time he hits it. It is very Lesnar-like, but honestly, I think Wardlow's F10, because it's double the amount, I would say, is twice as impressive as Brock's F5. Brock's very emphatic and powerful, but the way that Wardlow, especially depending on who he hits it on, but Brock's F5s can be lazy at certain times, like on the Big Show. Like he lands on his fucking horn, like on his shoulder. It's not exactly the same. Wardlow always hits it flush, and it always looks great. It might be because he faces smaller people, but it always looks great no matter what. So yeah, I think Wardlow's F10 is great. I do agree it's very Lesnar-like, but if anyone else is going to do a finisher like Lesnar, it might as well be Wardlow. And I'm a big Wardlow fan, so I'm looking forward to seeing him eventually break away from MJF, get that big babyface turn, and become, honestly, very likely one of the bigger babyfaces in that company. I really think he has it in him to do well in AEW on his own. And that's going to do it for episode 421 here today of #AskGSM for Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021. Thanks for checking into the show. As always, I appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine @WrestleRant with #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. With all that being said, enjoy your holiday week, guys. Enjoy Christmas on Saturday. We'll be back next week with a final episode of 2021, so let's make it a good one. Until then, guys, enjoy your Christmas countdown, rest of your holiday week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.